Oh, there we go. Hey guys, good morning. I was muted. Feel free to raise your hand, come on up. I just noticed that Discord gave us the voice chat, what is it, text in voice option. But I don't think that's for the amphitheater. I think it's just for the voice chat channels. But if you guys go to some of the channels, you'll probably see it. It's kind of cool. But for now, we are just going to stay in the DAO meetings channel.
Good morning.
Hey, Aavegotchi, good morning. Long time no chat.
Seems like I live here now in Discord.
Same, brother.
We have a lot to
How's
talk about today.
Yeah.
Sorry, what
Yeah,
were you gonna say?
I was just saying, how's your Saturday and beginning of your Sunday going?
Pretty good. I've been setting up. I got a little garden going, so I've been doing some vegetable gardening. Got a bunch of stuff like tomatoes and kale and stuff. So
Gotta
trying
touch
to
that grass.
grow my own
Sometimes
veggies.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, okay. I guess we can kick it right off. We kind of had like a mini DAO discussion yesterday around the cartridges idea. And for those of you in the chat who haven't had a look at Dan's post because I think bots are a pressing issue, right? So maybe we should try and gather some consensus around that. See if we can do anything actionable. And then there's another list of items that we have to look at today. But
Mhm.
in my opinion, I guess if everyone's good with it, we can maybe try and address this cartridge conversation around the bots. Yeah, I see Hardcore has popped the link in the chat there. Keeping the status quo of disabled spillover for a while, and it is a hot thread. It's on fire. I got like probably 120 responses on it. But yeah, recommend looking at Coder Dan's post. It's like halfway up. Let's make the Gotchiverse the coolest club on the blockchain. Basically, could you maybe just give a little summary for anybody who hasn't read this? Like, what's this
Mhm.
kind of proposal that you're making potentially with the Gotchiverse cartridges?
Yeah. So right now, one of the biggest pressing issues is that the fact that even if we are able to stop the bots from like coming into the game, or we're not, well, we're able to track them with some level of accuracy and then ban them. The biggest problem is that they keep coming in. So it doesn't matter how many we stamp out, it's super easy for them to just switch to another blockchain address and join that way. And we can't really like prevent new addresses from coming because there are legitimate players that are maybe using a new wallet that doesn't have any on-chain transaction history, and so they would feel like legitimately that it's unfair that they're not able to join. So what I wish we could do is just have a blanket, ban on anyone with fewer than 100 transactions in their on-chain history. But even that could get gamed pretty easily. So there's no way to really do it from that angle. And so what we're thinking of here is how can we set up some sort of system that creates a sort of like trust relationship between existing community members that have standing in the community. They've been in the game for a long time. They have Gotchi assets. They've invested in the game, and have lots of different they've crafted lots of things in the game, and these new players who have zero reputation and are coming in and kind of just doing some of them are picking up a bunch of Alchemica and then leaving. I mean, and that's not the main problem. It's just that we don't know who these guys are when they're coming in. We don't know what type of players they're going to be. And so one way I think that we should think about going is kind of going back to what we could have done initially, which was which would be like a closed alpha or closed beta, where we carefully decide who's going to be able to join this game, as a lot of games in their early stages also do. This is there's definitely a lot of precedent for something like this. And so one of the ways that we could do that would be having an invite system. And that invite system would basically be an NFT. We could airdrop it to a lot of these players coming in. And so one mechanism for airdropping could be giving it to these trusted community members, guys that have already been in the game for a while. We know to a certain extent who they are. They've invested in the ecosystem. So basically let them vet the players for the community, and then give them an incentive to do that well, basically saying, okay, if you vet the right players and they end up being good players, they not only do they play well in the game, but they also kind of convert and become part of Gotchi Gang. They might get a realm parcel, or they might craft some tiles that they can either sell in the marketplace, or they can hold for in the future when if they think they're collectibles. So basically just some sort of conversion activity. Those would be considered like those they would be valued higher in the scale of things. And then the members who handed out the invitations would get more invitations, so they could continue inviting more people in the next round of these invitation airdrops. So that's the general gist of it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So it seems like it kind of starts out with, looking at trusted members in our community, whether they're guild managers or, like you said, well-known Gotchi gang members who are, managing their scholars. They're allocated a certain amount of these cartridges. That's like the first tier that gets dropped, and then those guys give those cartridges out to the scholars, who then, if they manage their cartridge well, they're not engaging with bots, then they get a second airdrop of another set of cartridges. And then also on the side there, you also acknowledge that people who have been crafting installations or upgrading installations, would they be included as well, like in addition to
Yeah.
crafting tiles and all that?
Yeah. So one thing I didn't mention was on the scholar side. So these cartridges, they would have a certain amount of charge when we first gave them out. Probably it could be configured, but most likely it would be somewhere in the range of 30 to 60 days. And that once that charge runs out, they would basically need to get another cartridge from another patron, the person who gave them the cartridge to begin with, or we would have basically a system where they could be airdropped more charge for their cartridge based on their on-chain metrics. And so that's how the scholars could continue playing, without having any discontinuation from their gameplay. So it would kind of, how much charge they receive would also kind of be based on their conversion into the ecosystem. So it's kind of like a free to play 30 days. If you do some sort of conversion into the ecosystem, you show that you want to become part of Gotchi Gang, then you would get more charge for your cartridge. If you don't do that, and but there's a patron who believes that maybe you're close to converting, or you're worth continuing to support, they could obviously give them another cartridge. But we could say, well, you didn't really convert, so you wouldn't get any more charge for your cartridge. And so the other part of it is that Gotchi owners and realm owners would not need cartridges to play. They would basically be they already have shown investment in the ecosystem, so they wouldn't need anything. And the question you were asking there was something about sorry, what was you?
I think you answered it. I was just
Okay.
basically asking what were the criteria basically for getting a cartridge and who would need to use the cartridge. So
Oh,
you
right.
basically said, yeah,
Yeah.
you said basically if you own a gotchi, you own assets in the game, then this is not really going to be applicable
Yeah.
to you. This is someone who owns no assets in the game, who's grinding out Alchemica as a scholar, like a very entry point, very low level entry point into the game, and making sure that people coming into those low level entry points actually want to move up to the higher tiers of ownership where you own assets and eventually a gotchi, and rather than having the more I guess extractive player, where they're just dumping everything and turning it into fiat or um, die or whatever they're gonna do with it, but it's just taking value out of the ecosystem, not really putting anything back in. And you made a good point yesterday with what this channeling UBI was meant for initially. It's to essentially attract, like bootstrap, the player base to get more
Mhm.
people involved in the actual ecosystem who are going to stay and become future gotcha gang, right?
Yeah, I mean, I view the Alchemica at this point as in the forum I gave an example of using Google Ads. And so if you use Google Ads for say you have yoga pants that you're trying to sell, and uh you basically, when you're setting up the campaign, you target it towards 50-year-old men. It's like, okay, you can spend your money on that. Google's going to take your money, but you're not going to get any value out of it because you're in the wrong demographic. And so what we're trying to do here is basically attract the right types of players that we want in this game. People who are they're gonna play the game, they're gonna get excited about Aavegotchi, and they're gonna end up converting into some of our NFT assets. So that's kind of the mindset I'm coming from when I think of um like, I'm not worried. It's not that they're dumping Alchemica, it's that if we have assets for them to convert into and they're not interested, then they're it's kind of like we're targeting the wrong people, right? That's where my mindset is.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It has to be targeting the right relevant people and not rugging genuine people who want to actually that are excited about the game but maybe don't fully understand um, how to level up. That's where the guilds would come in and say, hey, you know what? It's probably in your best interest to take some of that alchemica, turn it into something, craft something with it, and then at least you'll have your cartridge get airdropped to you, right, for next time around. And
Mhm.
I think if they understand that, there's a strong incentive there to actually convert some of your alchemica.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is you built a really cool tool to like track scholars and see how much actually is being removed from the market.
Mhm.
So that could be another tool that could probably be used, right, when you guys are looking at um, like who deserves these cartridges. It almost seems like a franchise. It's like a franchise system,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
there
And
has to be. Go ahead.
it's like the criteria is what this is where the rubber meets the road a little bit more, where we have to think about what are the criteria. Say that we, for example, said, all right, we're gonna give out 15,000 invitations in round two. We have 15,000. That's a fixed number. One criteria would just be to look at like we could just basically do a simple leaderboard. Who crafted the most? Of all the non-Gotchi owners, the non-Aavegotchi asset owners, who crafted the most? And then we could just dole out NFTs based on, or invitations based on something like that. So the difficulty with this method is thinking of a fair, transparent way to dole out the invitations for round 2. For round 1, I think it's fairly easy. We can discuss a little bit more, like the different groups of asset owners who would receive invitations. In the original forum post, I wrote the tile owners, people who have crafted tiles, the golden altar crafters, and then potentially also those who have upgraded their altars like past a certain level. If level 4 is too high, maybe it could also be level 3. Basically, they've shown some level of crafting in the game. Those are all kind of the players that are exemplary and would receive invitations. But where this method gets a little bit harder is with round 2. Like, how do we want to classify like a conversion? What would be the base amount of crafting for a conversion?
Oh yeah, see that's interesting. I mean, if someone also, I mean, let's look at also the fact that some of these players might be grinding out Alchemica to potentially buy a humble parcel. I've heard that a
Mhm.
few times. I've yet to like meet a player, but I think it's happened with a few scholars. So is there an incentive there if a scholar takes their Alchemica and is turning it into a parcel, is that something that would be considered exemplary? I mean, you're not crafting anything with the Alchemica, but you are,
Mhm.
putting the money back into the ecosystem. So would
Well,
something like that also qualify?
yeah, because they would then have a parcel. They wouldn't need the cartridge
Oh,
anymore.
right. That's right. So maybe that could be also part of the selling point as well of this is to the scholar, hey, if you can just
Mhm.
buy a parcel, just
Yeah,
go ahead and buy a parcel. You don't even have to worry about the system. If you're getting upset about the system, and it bothers you with the way this will work, just buy a parcel. Like, I know it's maybe for some it's a lot of money, but it's not thousands yet, right? It's very reasonable entry point to buy a humble parcel and do your own channelings and keep 100%, right? And start, building out your own asset. So that could be another way people are incentivized to put more money, keep it in the ecosystem.
yeah.
I think it's a great idea, but it's also something I feel we should try and get consensus on um, fairly quickly. Like we can iron out
Mhm.
the tough points people have with it, and then try and get a sig prop out on that maybe, and just so we can start implementing it. Like, how long would you say if something like this, everybody's in agreement on it? How long do you think it would take to implement it from the time the sig prop gets passed to when we can actually implement the system?
I mean, I think if we started implementing a sig prop tomorrow, we would do a week for that, and then the core prop would be a week. So probably by the time the core prop is implemented, I mean, if we move fast, we could have the cartridge. I believe we've basically created a cartridge contract already for the mini games that we've been working on, and so it wouldn't be too much to change that. So the contract side would be ready. It would be more the UI side and the announcement side that we would want to make sure that everyone is crystal clear on. Um, Not to derail it, but there's also another potentially simpler angle that tries to solve the same problem, but comes at a different angle. And maybe I think it would be effective in some ways and less effective in others. And that would just be having so you would still have cartridges, but they could be purchased with glitter token, and they would come with a certain amount of charge. This is kind of how I see mini games emerging in the future. So I don't know if any of the mini game task force guys are listening, but I think this is potentially how mini games could work in the future. And basically, you would um, spend glitter to buy a certain amount of charge for your cartridge. Obviously, one glitter equals one block for burning. I think that might be a little like if you charge someone one glitter for 2.2 seconds of gameplay, that might be a little expensive. But maybe not if glitter keeps going down. But the idea would basically be you can buy this cartridge for the minimum duration would be 7 days worth of charge. That's like it's probably going to be a couple bucks, not that much. And then anything you could also buy higher than that. You could buy 30 days, you could buy 90 days. Maybe there's even an unlimited charge option that would be like maybe it's a couple $100 or USD worth of glitter, or one or maybe 100 USD worth of glitter. Basically, this option that they could buy this cartridge, and that would put this financial kind of it's not really a barrier, but it's just like it's a step that they would have to get over if they wanted to play the game without any Aavegotchi assets. Again, that we come back to this idea that if you want to play the game without any barriers, you can get some Aavegotchi assets, or you could pay basically per week with a cartridge, and you could charge it up with glitter. So that would be another way. I think it aligns incentives quite nicely for the LP side. So there's a lot of people who they're LPing and they're earning glitter, but they don't really have enough to convert yet into a tile or into like a parcel, but they still want to be able to play the game without having to spend a lot of money up front. So what they could do is just basically buy a little bit of Alchemica, and they could stake it for a certain period of time, might be a week or two, to get their 7-day cartridge, and then they could continue playing.
Yeah, I mean, that option sounds it sounds good. I mean, another thing I think of with this glitter purchase system is if the guilds themselves see exemplary players, they could give them the glitter to go get the cartridge if the player for whatever
Mhm.
reason has no, some of these people are in very poor countries. I don't know at what level this would cost them or how much it would cost them, but if it was like that extreme scenario where it's like I do not have like literally anything to purchase this, but I'm a great player, you know the guilds themselves could also manage some of the cartridges through that system and say, hey, look, here's some glitter for your first cartridge. If you're a good player, if we keep checking our tool, make sure that you're not like selling all of your alchemica every time, then we'll make sure that you're taken care of. You're going to have your cartridges, or you can go out and do it on your own, right? You can go and stake your LP position for a week or however long you need, fill up your cartridge with glitter, and also it's another glitter sync now, which I think it's great, right? The more syncs we have for glitter, the better it's going to be for the actual the token itself, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that kind of reminds me of those bonds I was talking about yesterday, where
Yeah.
you'd have to grind out the in-game resource to actually purchase your membership for the next 3 months. And if you for whatever reason didn't, your membership ran out before you could grind out all your gold, there was also an option to purchase it in fiat from a store. um, so I mean, we don't have to implement that, but I thought it was interesting that way, where people will be motivated to keep earning the in-game resource to keep their membership going, um, to get access to everything in the game. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
See if
I'm
anyone
just
else wants
reading
to come
some
up
of
here.
I'm reading some of the comments here.
So yeah, the scholars could get their cartridges minted for them by the patrons. You could basically mint. You wouldn't even have to send the glitter. You could literally just mint a cartridge directly to a scholar. That would be the easiest way. The downfall of this could be we are going to get accounts who just they're gonna still bot. It's just going to cost them a little bit more upfront to be able to do it, and hopefully, if we're able to catch them fast enough, we could make them lose money on that transaction. But if the glitter amount is too low, like if it's like 1 or 2 USD worth of of glitter to join the game for 7 days, the botters are just going to look at that and be like, it's all right. They're just going to factor it into their ROI calculation. So it would need to be a non-trivial amount of glitter to make them think twice.
Yeah, it
And
couldn't be just a
the one
small.
interesting benefit is eventually we plan to have glitter as a game as a token that you can use in game for a lot of different things. So if they say they spent $10, or oh, can you guys still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
You muted yourself. There you go.
There's damn AirPods will just turn on randomly. So when you mint this cartridge, we could then give you some glitter. We could give them some glitter in the game that they could then spend on in-game purchases. It would already be counted towards their balance. So that would be, it's not like they're spending it and they'll never get it back. They would get it back. They could just use it in game for stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that would be interesting, because then that allows them to get more involved with the ecosystem too, without being like you said, we want to avoid the stick method as much as possible, but also incentivize people strongly to make sure that they're looking at this as a game and not just a way a way to create some stable coin money and dump it on a centralized exchange.
Yeah, I thought the cartridge method is interesting, and if you take away all the labels, it seems like it's almost a gotchi in itself, in that, when you pet, if you don't pet, it just drains down, and you have other non-sellable intangible variables inside it. Like, in a gotchi, there's XP.
Mhm.
And in the sense of a cartridge, the intangible could be rep. You can't sell it off. Now, you could sell off, I guess, the NFT, and that'd be like selling your franchise in a way.
But you can't sell the
But
NFT. You can't sell a cartridge. They're not
okay, so a
transferable.
cartridge, it wouldn't have a transferable. It'd be sort of soul bound, if you will, and non-transferable.
Yep. Yeah. Once it's in their wallet, they can't transfer it.
Okay. So I guess it would have, parameters in it like we have in our gotchis now, like, kinship that can be hurt or drained if, from bad actions. And XP, which only goes up, which, would be called whatever in the cartridge, that is based upon the person's interacting with, the system itself, and is, I guess, upgradable. When you hit different XPs, you can upgrade your levels and stuff like that. So it's interesting that the cartridge sort of has a metaphor like a gotchi, in that sense of intangible things that can drop away or decrease from inactivity, and things that are rewarded for, better activity or better actions in the verse.
Yeah, the cartridges are kind of they're we've been thinking about them for a while, and one thing to note about a cartridge is, so the charge would be something that's on chain. So if I give a cartridge 30 days of charge, no matter if they're in the game or not, that charge is still going to be going down block by block, basically. So it would be like, if you buy 7 days of charge, you're going to be eligible to play the game for 7 days, no matter if you're in the game or not, because that charge is still going down. It would be, we'd have to basically turn that cartridge on and off every time they logged into the game, which would require an on-chain transaction each time. So that would be a bit much. And so it is worth noting that the cartridge charge will constantly be going down, even if you're not in the game.
I guess I didn't understand when you said that you would have to note when they entered, or was that saying that your solution is to have a charge that goes down no matter what?
Well, we can't have a charge that only goes down when they're in the game because the game is not on chain. The game is
Yes.
it's a game that's outside of the smart contract, but the charge would always be going down no matter what, even if they're not playing the game. So it's like you get 7 days. It's like you sign up for Spotify. If you're not listening to Spotify, your time is still being used.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get,
Yeah.
3,000 blocks worth of play.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that in case anyone was like thinking it would be the other way. I see that the chat here. What are we talking about here, guys? I see a lot of. I'm not really sure what the focus of the chat is right now. Like, what are we discussing here?
Yeah, I mean, I
Someone's talking about.
see a I see a question from Monarch here. With this change in management, do multiple Gotchi owners have a future, or should they join or create a guild? So, I mean, we have some people who are managing a ton of assets in the game. I guess for them to be like part of the system, they would just have to be a trusted party who's able to actually mint cartridges. Is that right? Like they wouldn't necessarily have to be a guild, but I guess maybe it would.
So okay, do multiple Gotchis owners have a future? Well, if you have multiple Gotchis, no matter what, you're still going to be able to lend them out on the lending market. There's still going to be a demand for your Gotchi because there's still going to be players who need them. So nothing will change there. It's just the fact that right now there's an unlimited number of wallets that can potentially borrow your Gotchi because every time we swat a bot nest, they come back, and there's always like people trying to get Gotchis for free or for 0.1 ghost, very low amounts. So nothing will change there. If you have, say that you have more invitations than you have Gotchis, because maybe you bought a lot of tiles or you upgraded a lot, you have a lot of land, you could then join a guild and you could give some of those invitations out. I think you'd have a good standing in that guild. The guild will definitely want you. If you didn't want to join the guild, you could still give out invites to people. You could find more scholars, and you wouldn't necessarily be lending them Aavegotchis because maybe you don't have enough, but you could still give them an invitation because if I give out invitations to good players, I'm going to get more invitations in the future. That's how that would work. So there's nothing about only guilds getting these cartridges. Anyone would be eligible to get a cartridge. It's just if they fit the certain prerequisites that we would be outlining.
Okay, that makes sense. I also have one more comment from Brills. He had put up a profit breakdown, I guess, for one of his scholars. So this player picked up 300 ghosts, 2 months, keeps 170 ghosts in profit. 100 ghosts has gone to the guild and to reinvest in the ecosystem. Would this be a bad scholar? So how would that be tracked? I guess if the splits wouldn't really affect the cartridges in any way, would they? Like what sort of splits or what sort of revenue share agreements
No,
you
I don't
have with
think
the
so.
guild wouldn't really, yeah.
So he's
'Cause-
saying they picked up 300 ghosts. It sounds like 300 ghosts worth of Alchemica.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't sound
worth
like
enough.
they didn't sell it from Alchemica to Ghost. In my opinion, as currently the knowyourscholar.com does not show Ghost and the trades that you've done from Alchemica to Ghost, mainly because when I add in Ghost to that, like the amount of queries goes up exponentially because there's a lot of especially for older wallets, it gets very complicated. So for newer wallets, it's pretty simple, and we can definitely add that in. But I'm working on some other queries that will make it easier to see that kind of data. But I wouldn't consider selling Alchemica to Ghost necessarily extracting, because you're still keeping it. If you then take that Ghost and you sell it to fiat, then you're basically taking that value out of the ecosystem. So that would be counted as selling, and that would be part of your extraction percentage. Now, if you take that Ghost and you buy a parcel with it, obviously you're still in the ecosystem. So it's not that hard to track all of that on the blockchain. It takes a lot of querying to do that. It's a lot of different queries that we need to set up. But so he says, if the player was to sell their earnings, would this be a bad scholar? And again, we're not saying that they're bad for doing that. It's if they sell 100% of it, well, I mean, it's not going to help their score. They're not necessarily a bad scholar because maybe they need the money for that month. They need to do something, but they plan to reinvest in the Gotchiverse next month. They just weren't able to do it this month. So I'm not saying they're good or bad people or good or bad scholars. And a model scholar, in my opinion, would be someone who is able to earn a certain percentage and also able to kind of reinvest a certain percentage every month back into the ecosystem via crafting or buying a parcel. But they're not bad.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to address, I guess, is a few things we're trying to address here. The first issue is the bots, right? Just the automation of picking up Alchemica everywhere. And then the second thing is the players who are intentionally just taking all their Alchemica and dumping it and taking the money out of the ecosystem. I think those are the two main issues that we have to address, right? And um, you know, giving the guilds and player, like the asset owners, some of the power to manage some of this, I think could work well with the cartridges and minting with glitter and whatnot. Just trying to see. I think Choina had a question. If you, where is this? How does this affect me if just lending my gotchis from my cold wallet to my hot wallet? Does that make a? Is that gonna?
Yeah, I mean,
be
one,
a change?
you're probably, if you're an OG, you're probably already gonna have some cartridges anyway because you'll probably get airdropped them. And I think someone mentioned you could just transfer a parcel to that wallet if you wanted. That wouldn't, obviously that's probably not ideal, but most likely you'll probably get a cartridge anyway.
Would this also mean that, like, you would whitelist or, not consider bad if someone just was interacting with the Aavegotchi exchange? Not like QuickSwap or something, but if they were interacting with the Aavegotchi's exchange system, it gets set up inside Aavegotchi, that it'd be like, oh, that's fine, you're staying within the system. If there was a way to sort of incentivize that over to sort of say, as long as you're staying within that, we won't punish you for saying going to Ghost from your Alchemica because you're doing it on the Aavegotchi exchange site.
I mean, what do you mean by the Aavegotchi exchange? Like the GAX?
Yeah.
Well, the GAX is just a DEX. It's not anything really that much different from QuickSwap. It's a
I get
Gotchi
it.
owned DEX.
Yeah, and so, there was a thing of we defined people or as, poor or not ideal players if they just go to fiat or something like that, and someone asked, well, is it bad if I go to Ghost or something like that? Would it be, in the DEX sense, if it was done on Aavegotchi's site, that's a good thing because I don't know, do you charge a small handling fee? And so that's good. and the fact that they're not punished in any possible way for exchanging into, other Gotchi assets.
Yeah, and we don't want to punish people for. There's no punishing of like selling. It's just every player should be allowed to make the decisions that they want. We need to have some rules if we decide to go down this path of having like charge and cartridges. We need to outline some rules and that they would follow. And again, we're trying to use more carrot and less stick in this situation.
I get it. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of conversation going on around this issue. I'm just thinking, like, should we try and get a SIG prop out there for people to look at, and then we can vote on that and see how the community feels about it, to move forward with this. I don't think it's something we should just table for next week. So, like, if we feel like we can do something actionable with this idea, maybe it might be a good idea for us to get a SIG prop together. I'll have to look at maybe the DAO chat again because I know there was a whole bunch of replies after your initial kind of proposal for what that could look like. But I'm just looking at the chat here. Do you guys think we can move on a SIG prop and at least have something to work off of, and then we can make adjustments as needed, and then finally get a core prop and actually implement something. Because after the last conversation we had, botting seems to be a huge issue in the game right now. Like, do you have any metrics around like the percentage of scholars or you know um, like any specific details on how bad the botting is right now?
Hold on, I'm gonna make a little poll here.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Quincy, I agree too. We need to hammer out the guidelines to get one first. I agree. Um, Here, let's see. Dan's got a poll
We got
going
the
on here.
cartridge, we got the glitter, and we got the none. So I mean, invite only cartridges. We'd have to be clear about the rules for round 2. That's the complexity of that proposal. Glitter purchased cartridges, I think they would be kind of a simpler implementation because we just say probably going to charge maybe 5 to 10 USD worth of glitter upfront, to basically impose an economic cost to the botters. If they get caught, they wouldn't be able to get their funds back. So that's the nice part about that one. It's a little bit simpler. We don't have to think about rules about rounds and things like that. But it might not. It doesn't go any sort of any trust mechanic, so it might be a little bit less effective at keeping out the bots.
I think going back, I raised my hand initially because I wanted to comment on what Monarch was talking about. I think his main concern is essentially that he has a lot of gotchis to lend out, and he won't have enough people to lend them to. Personally, if we do go the invite only route, I think the best way to do it would be at minimum to give one for every gotchi as well. In my opinion, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe 15,000 is not enough at the beginning. Someone's talking about having like a virtual ghost token that people would receive in the game. I'm trying to things are going fast here, but I'm trying to read what he's saying while I'm talking. Something about we wouldn't be giving away Alchemica, we'd be giving away virtual ghost. Is that what he's saying? Okay, so like V tokens. All right. So they'd be earning non-transferable versions of Alchemica. Is that pretty much?
If that's the case, is there any way that whenever a borrower uses the Gotchi, instead of receiving Alchemica directly, can the Alchemica maybe be paid out in friends? So that way they can go and make raffle tickets. That way, at that point, if they really do want to get out and exit the market, well, they have to sell their ticket as opposed to just dumping Alchemica.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how exciting that is for like a new player to. It's just we don't want to overcomplicate things here as well. I feel like that would be a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Like in
So
terms
I
of
guess
understanding the value proposition. If you're just learning about this game and we tell you, all right, you're gonna go in the game, you're gonna join a guild, you're gonna get an invite, or maybe there's no invite, you just join the game, you're gonna get these tokens and these friends that aren't actually real tokens. You're gonna spend them for raffle tickets, but there's not that many raffles, so you're just gonna kind of hold them. I mean,
And also, you
yeah.
could just sell the raffle tickets.
Yeah. I mean,
okay. Well, I guess
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
I think the bots are definitely something we want to handle as soon as possible. I'm not really that worried about the overall Alchemica and the tokenomics. I think they're still very strong. It's just we want to make sure. What I keep reiterating here is that we're looking for players that we want. Players are looking for a game that they want, and we're looking for players that we want. And we're using Alchemica as a budget kind of to attract those type of players. So we should be cognizant of that and have correct rules that we believe will help guide those type of players to join our game.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think those are some core like ideas to focus on. So I guess for now, with this, as far as this issue goes, we should keep moving on it in the DAO forum, and hopefully try and come to consensus on something we can move to a sig prop, and then hopefully we can get this issue worked out like in the next couple weeks. While we're still getting more scholars in, we can actually set precedent for how how a scholar can get involved with Aavegotchi, how they can start moving up in the game. I think there is a component of like educating the player too, which like some guilds are actually doing really well with that and managing their players really well. So yeah, I agree. We shouldn't be punishing those guilds or players either. So we can. I think the cartridge idea is a great place to start, and then just figuring out how these are going to be distributed seems to be like the main part of the discussion right now. Is how, if we were going to do cartridges, how are we going to be giving them out? Are we going to be giving them out on an invite only basis? Working with OG players and well-known Gotchi gang members, guilds, or are we going to be going off more of a glitter-based system? That seems to be what needs to be clarified, but we definitely have other things that we want to cover, and I know we are kind of at a halfway point. So if you guys are good with it, I'd like to maybe move on to some of the other topics we gotta cover for today.
I mean, I kind of just want to reiterate because I've seen many people say like we shouldn't be telling people what they want to do. Like this is a completely new space. Just because Fortnite didn't tell you what you could or couldn't do with in their game, like doesn't mean that when there's so much direct real money involved, that shouldn't be how games treated going forward.
Yeah, it's a marketing budget, and our goal as a community should be to find players who are going to join the community and add value to it. Otherwise, like, why would we be trying to get a bunch of new players to come in? They're just going to come in and like take value from the economy and lower everything. Doesn't really help that much.
Yeah, what value does someone who comes in and takes 100% of their earnings and just like switches it to USDC, our player count goes up. Like that doesn't really do much for us. The idea is that the Alchemica that the argument that people have made is that well I don't sell all my Alchemica from the split. The Alchemica that you would have gotten from the split, someone else within the ecosystem who owned the Gotchi would have gotten that Alchemica. So that point is kind of moot. Like it's about the split that the player gets and how much of that split that they're taking out of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should move it to the DAO form and get the little details of it worked out so we can move to SIG prop. I want to move on to the next thing, which is the channeling timer. Kind of ties in with this a little bit, but this is to address that. What is it? 8 p.m. Eastern. I think it's 8 p.m. Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern reset for gotchis, and potentially changing this to a system where you can select your time from when the 24-hour timer is going to start. Maybe you get one free one, maybe you don't, but then there's going to be a glitter mechanism there as well. Potentially, you can spend some glitter and you can set your time for that specific time, because we got to be mindful of all these different time zones. And maybe there's a certain subset where this is going to be a quality of life improvement for them, because they don't have to get up at 4 a.m. anymore to do their channelings, or optimally do their channelings, because that's like the Gotchi happy hour right now, where you get a whole bunch of Alchemica that gets dropped around a specific time. Maybe that could be a lot better if people can choose their own times. It might be good for the distribution of Alchemica while people are channeling. So maybe we can get some thoughts around that, move the discussion to that now, and see if we can come to consensus on some of these things. The SIG prop's already out, Quincy was saying. Yeah. So I guess we just have to get that to a core prop then. Post SIG prop for paying usage. So it is posted. That was my bad. I didn't realize that was already posted.
And I think
Is
the
there
main
anything-
one is going to be setting a time, like a personal limit, right? For each gotchi of a personal channeling window.
Yeah. Personal channeling window.
I have a
for
question about the.
multiple-
Sorry, I was just gonna say I have a question about the actual implementation of it. Would it be possible if, say, someone had like 20 gotchis, would they be able to choose a time for all those gotchis at once, or would it be like would like one be at like 10 a.m., the next one would have to be like 10:01 a.m., 10:02 a.m., or like could I be like I want all these gotchis to switch my time to 10 a.m.?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to add some sort of option to probably Aavegotchi.com. We'll add an option there where you can, like recently we added the batch access rights to the parcels page, so we'll probably have to add something similar for the gotchis. Where you'll be able to batch set the channeling window for all of them.
Okay, because yeah, it would be kind of annoying if like each one had their own time. Like that was like each one a minute later because you had to like log in, do something in game, and then you have to log into the next one, do something in game. If you could just switch them all, like obviously it would be a fee for each one, but still switch them all at once and have them all set at the same time. That would be ideal, I think.
Yeah, I see a few options in the main SIG prop here. Allow players to set unique window reset time for a small glitter fee, and then revert to original 24-hour cooldown system as described in the Gotchiverse Bible.
The SIG prop that was actually proposed didn't include that vote.
Yeah, so I don't know. Are there two different SIG props out right now? Because someone posted a link, and that's not this one that we have in the Miro
So
board.
what happened was we were working on one collectively, and then someone just posted one by themselves, and that's where we're at. So that's fun.
Leroy Jenkins.
Okay,
So I mean, so he didn't include an. I thought it was fine as it was. He just didn't include the Gotchi ID. But you're saying he actually didn't include one of the options that was proposed?
there was debate in the thread whether that option should be included at all or not, and he decided to not include that option despite it being an option in the one that was being collectively worked on. And I mean, it's up for debate whether that option should have been there or not. Hardcore was gonna submit it with like a ranked choice, so like if you prefer option A, then option B, then option C. But yeah, he just went rogue and just posted his own.
Well, what if I mean, the DAO is a place where technically anyone can propose anything. If you guys have a proposal that follows the template and also has the correct options that you believe, why not just submit that one too and have two proposals?
I mean,
But,
like I said to you, I'm not super versed on how the DAO works and all the procedures and whatnot, but I'm not sure why someone didn't.
Snapshot says it's a copy paste. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the
But
one
yeah.
we're addressing today has 3 options. The one that's on the mirror board has option A, B, and C. So, I mean,
Yeah, the
that
one on
is the
Snapshot though only has 2. The one that's actually posted
Yeah.
only has 2.
Yeah, but this is the proposal we're talking about here today. Is I mean, this should be the SIG prop if it's not already. The one that's in the mirror board, regardless of what other ones are out there. I mean, like Dan said, people can post whatever they want, but we're addressing this one. So,
Yeah.
I feel like we should post this one up as a SIG prop if it's not.
I mean, I guess there's no rule in the rule books, but this because we've never had this situation. Maybe it would be a situation where whichever one receives the most votes becomes the canon, the accepted option, the accepted SIG prop for that. I don't know. It could be a slippery slope.
The reason why I don't think this is necessarily an issue is because I don't think that the option that was left out is going to win regardless.
Yeah.
Because it was like in the original vote to switch it, it was the one that's being left out is to switch it back to the way the buy worked, and that was the one that got crushed in the initial vote. So I don't think it's going to win regardless, but I mean, I don't know how we want to handle this.
I mean, Mikey J makes a good point. He's like, that's why I didn't vote. He's gonna abstain because that option was missing. So I mean, he was gonna vote on that. But it's I don't know. Like if that's not gonna be a popular option, I still think it should be up there just to get consensus around all 3 options anyway. See which one actually is gonna be the one people want. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. Either way, we need to come to consensus on the issue, right? Which is
Why
the
didn't the
reset
original
time.
poster just like delete it and repost it with the correct information?
I would be speculating, but I don't want to speculate. But there was some drama that went on. Let me put it that way.
I mean, he's just like, there's no downside to removing it and reposting it, because from my perspective, like, we have a template that people should be following. You're supposed to include your Gotchi ID. It's not gatekeeping, it's literally posted.
I mean, I had this exact argument yesterday in one of the chats, and I mean, this dude just sounded salty, if I'm being honest. He sounded like he got pissed off with one of the other contributors, and he was just like, fuck you guys, I'm just gonna post this and not care about the repercussions. Yeah.
Well, he should contact me if Snapshot won't let him delete it, he should contact me, because otherwise,
I don't
like,
think he tried to delete it. I think he was just like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm taking my ball and going home kind of deal.
I mean, we've never had that situation happen before, but we basically need to come to consensus on the issue. That third option, I guess, should be there. It just doesn't really make any sense why someone would just remove it. But we need to come to consensus on the issue, right? So, how are we going to do that? Are we going to, use this SIG prop? The one, in my opinion, the one on the mirror board is the one we're discussing today, and it's also more detailed than the one that's up there right now. So, in terms of like describing the issue and pointing out the 3 options available, this one is just a well put together SIG prop. The other one, the other one's just, I don't even know if it's really following the template. So I don't even really know if that's
He just
the
wrote
validity.
this. He wrote this SIG prop. Is this in the mirror board somewhere, like the text from it, or did he just kind of improv on that too, from
think
what you guys
improv on it.
everyone was discussing?
I think
Right.
he hardcore. The text he posted, it cuts off at risks. I'm trying to like post it on on Snapshot, but it cuts off at risks. Shouldn't it have the voting option? Like I said, I've never actually posted one of these, but I'm trying to post the correct one just for clarification, because he said someone else posted. I don't know why he doesn't post it, but
Okay. I mean, so aside from the SIG prop issue, what do people think about the channeling time? Where are we sitting with that? Are we going to be burning some glitter to reset your time to custom time, and then it's 24 hours from that point on? Do we want to do a 24-hour cooldown system that was described in the original Gotchiverse Bible? Curious to know what people's thoughts are on that, or retain it with global reset at midnight UTC, which I think a lot of people have said that that's probably the least desirable option. I agree, because we have to. That's the issue. We got to address that. So yeah, definitely want to see what people's opinions are on that. Just read the comments here. So yeah, some people are saying choose your own time, no cooldown. Okay, 24-hour cooldown. Mikey J, revert to OG Bible. No futuristic, doesn't care either way. Yeah, okay. We need to get consensus on it. Maybe once we get an official SIG prop out, we can vote on it. That's as much as I have to say about that. Do you guys have anything else to add around this issue? If not, we can move on to level 9, the notorious BTC, Mikey J, what they've been working on, and potentially, do something actionable based on the models that they've developed. If you guys are in here, you're always welcome to come up, but maybe potentially putting a SIG prop together for some adjustments based on your metrics. I don't know where you guys are at with that, but if you want to hop up on stage and give us some of your thoughts around what is actionable based on the data points that you guys have gathered so far. You've done extensive work on archetypes, on alchemica rates, harvester rates. It's really impressive what you put together here. But what are some of the actionable things that you could see we could potentially look at maybe like implementing, in the near term based on your modeling?
Yeah, thanks, FA. Notorious couldn't be here this morning or today, but I can just quickly summarize where we're at. I think we do at this point have 3 pretty distinct and all viable in their own way options for moving forward with the harvester recipe. I could just quickly summarize the options. I put a link in the chat with the Google Drive folder that has basically all of the details of everything I'm about to talk about. So for anyone who wants to kind of dive deeper into the numbers, you can find everything there. But basically, just going back over what's changed since we talked about this last. So after releasing the initial report last week, we realized there were some issues in the parcel supply alchemica numbers we were using. So we corrected that. And that did change things a little bit. Not the general thrust of them, but it changed the exact details of our recipe suggestions a little bit. So we updated recipe B based on that. And then also we received an updated recipe A from Let's Go Bankless and the Pixelcraft team. And we were able to rerun the simulations with that updated recipe A. We also made some updates to the way that the simulations run for smaller parcels, because as I had said last week, the smaller parcel numbers were a little misleading only because the bots were really just being a little too aggressive with upgrading the altar and the maker on smaller parcels. So we sort of made the bots a little smarter, whereas on smaller parcels, they limit themselves to lower level altars and makers, sort of in proportion to the parcel supply. So it makes for a more fair comparison between parcel sizes. So of the 3 recipes options that we have now, so there's an A, a B, and a C. The C is new for this week, and I'll talk about that in a second. But there's 2 fundamental ways in which the recipes differ. So the first way is whether or not they offer diminishing returns as you upgrade your harvester or increasing returns. So what I mean by diminishing returns is that in the current recipes and also in recipe A, at level 1, you get a big benefit at a low cost. When you upgrade to level 2, you get a little bit less benefit at a little bit higher cost, and so on and so forth up the levels. And this is generally true for most installations, if not all installations in the game. And our feeling was that this works okay for installations like the altar and the maker because you're only limited to 1. So you sort of have no other choice if you want to keep going but to upgrade. But because harvesters are unique in that they're probably going to be the most plentiful installation in the game, and because you can build so many of them, we felt that actually for harvesters, actually flipping the equation and making each upgrade be a slightly better investment was the way to go. And because you're also having to upgrade your altar, your maker, and your reservoirs, which have diminishing returns, by adding increasing returns to the harvesters, it helps to balance things out and make upgrading make sense for the player. And we also felt that when we started to run the simulations that there was really no way to make upgrading the best option without having those increasing returns. So that's one big factor that makes the recipes different. The second factor is the overall harvest rates. So in the initial, in the current Bible, you can essentially empty an average spacious parcel with 89 level 1 harvesters if you wanted to in Act 1 over the course of a couple of years. And the reason why we picked Act 1 as sort of a barometer as to how long people would want to empty their parcel is because you don't get all of your alchemica at the beginning of Act 1. You get 25% of it at the beginning of Act 1, and then it gets doled out in time over 2 years. So anytime we push the bots to sort of try and go faster to say, okay, what if I want to empty my parcel in 6 months? Well, what happens is you end up upping your harvest rate so high that you may deplete that initial 25%, but you can't deplete the rest that's coming. So we found that by using that kind of like 2-year benchmark is if I want to deplete by the end of Act 1, that assures that I'm not wasting any harvester capacity, before I've received all my alchemica. So as I mentioned, the initial recipes, you could empty your parcel in Act 1 with 89 level 1s on a spacious parcel. Compare that to recipe C, where we did actually cut the harvest rates substantially. You would need over 400 level 1s to empty your spacious parcel, which of course you can't build. You're limited to the 128 on the spacious parcel. So it definitely fixed some of the issues where players might just build all level 1s and stop and achieve a really high ROI. So, the trade-offs of, each of these 2 approaches come with trade-offs. The trade-offs of the diminishing returns is that it does work. The trade-off of having increasing returns is that it does work a little bit to the disadvantage of smaller parcels, because anything you do to sort of incentivize the upgrading to higher levels and kind of downplay the returns at lower levels also to some degree is going to affect smaller parcels, because smaller parcels aren't going to have as much incentive to get to the higher levels because they have less alchemica to harvest. So that's the trade-off there. The trade-off on lowering the harvest rates is that, so the good side of lowering the harvest rates is it helps balance the upgrading and the expanding, crafting new level 1s. But the trade-off there is it lowers the player's overall return. So when we lower the harvest rates, it's just going to lower everyone's ROI, everyone's return across the board. So with that, just to summarize, recipe A keeps the increasing returns as the original buy build does, but it does bring the ROI of upgrading closer to the ROI of building out and expanding. But it's still pretty clear that in this strategy, most players would choose to basically fill their parcel with L1s before upgrading. But it does at least ensure that the upgrading is not, the upgrader doesn't just totally get wrecked. It's still a viable strategy, but I think a knowledgeable player who studied the mechanics probably wouldn't choose it. Recipe B has the increasing returns, and it goes a little further towards making upgrading a little more attractive. But it's sort of limited by the fact that it's sort of limited by the cost of the maker and the altar, in that it brings those strategies even closer, but it never gives you a time frame in which the upgrader kind of takes hold and sort of does better. So then what we added this week was a recipe C, which basically further reduces the harvest rates. And the way we paid for that was to essentially reduce the cost of the maker, which helps bring the ROI back up closer to the ROI that was originally intended by the original recipes. And the reason why we looked at lowering the maker cost is we looked at the cost of the maker in comparison to the cost of the altar, and saw that the cost of a level 9 maker in the original recipes is twice the cost of a level 9 altar. And we just felt that seemed a bit excessive given the value that the altar presents compared to the value that the maker presents. So that's kind of why we saw the maker as the best place to kind of cut costs to make recipe C make sense. And actually, I think it had a lot of positive side effects for balancing the smaller parcels, in particular the reasonable parcel as well. So that's kind of the full kind of scope of where we're at right now. I think these are options that are, pretty much could be ready to vote on. Notorious and I were talking this morning to discuss, I think that one question is, whether or not to present all three options, or whether, it makes sense to present two or one or what. So we still need to figure that out, and I'll kind of leave that to Notorious. My personal feeling is that recipe C presents the best option at this point, but I'm open to taking any questions or answering any questions about the recipes, or hearing any concerns that anyone might have.
Yeah, well laid out. I have some little inferences people could take from this. I think recipe C was the model where farming would basically, in a sense, from if I got this right, would be based more on targeting your reasonable and your larger spacious parcels for farming, because there would be maybe a slight disadvantage towards the smaller parcels, like a humble parcel, for example. Am I on point there with that? Was that recipe C?
Yeah, all three recipes actually hurt the humble parcel a little more than the current rules, but it kind of depends on how you look at it, because what I would say is that on a humble parcel, I actually don't think the upgrade or expander is probably not the best approach. I think most players on a humble parcel are actually going to do more of the low level or even the single alchemica, like we put the FUD maxi low level ore, who can still earn a very, very good ROI, even if their overall profit is going to be low. They can invest just a little and get a very good return on what they do invest.
Right. Another point I mentioned from your models was, in general sense, if you're going to be going the low leveler route, your return on your initial capital, your capital investment initially is going to be smaller, but you get that back sooner, but it does take you longer to get that alchemica extracted from your parcel. Whereas if you have the upgrade ore, the one who aggressively upgrades their installations, there is a significant amount of time before you get your initial investment back, because you're sinking in such a large amount of resources initially into your infrastructure, right?
Yeah. And just to go back to the reason why, having these upgrading and expanding being balanced is important is because, you know, upgrading uses glitter, upgrading burns glitter, and I think upgrading also, again, like just like you just said, because you can get a little bit more out of it, but you have to wait a little longer. It just encourages reinvestment of the game, and it kind of like entices people to stay in the game rather than just kind of be happy with the profit they have and just cash out, you know. So actually, one other thing, Harambe mentioned this, and this should really be said because a couple people have asked me about this. You know, these strategies are not meant to be presented as, hey, this is the best you're going to do. You know, there's definitely ways that the bots could improve on their strategy. But our goal was really to look at two bots that take kind of opposing views of upgrading and expanding and make sure they're balanced. So, you know, like Harambe's pointed out, you know, maybe on a humble, you should not build a maker at all. So we have the bot building a level 1 maker. And, you know, what we did is we just looked at the value of Alchemica and the parcel compared to the cost of the maker and just set the player a budget. So I forget what it was. I think on the maker it was like 2 or 3%. So you could spend 3% of your Alchemica and your parcel on the maker. And that's how we ended up with the L1 maker on the humble. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it could be that if the humble parcel did no maker, they might actually end up better off. So there's room in here for individual players to like find their own strategies that suits their own, you know, their own play style. And these are certainly not the maximum returns that you could potentially see. You could potentially see higher returns. Also, we did not look too much at optimizing reservoir because reservoirs have a lot to do with how often you want to empty them and your labor costs and things like that. So that's going to have a lot of impact on the return players actually see as well.
Yeah, very interesting. And then was a part of this model addressing the spillover radius and the spillover rates? Is that part of this model?
Yeah, it is. Thanks for mentioning that. That was another change since last week is we got some details from Let's Go Bankless with his new recipe A about the spillover rates that Pixelcraft has been thinking about. So we took those spillover rates before we were using just the altered spillover rates as a placeholder. So we took those kind of proposed spillover rates and worked them through all the recipes. So those are accounted for in all the recipes. And they went they're a little bit more a bigger difference than what the alter does. I think they go from kind of this, depends on the Alchemica type, but they go from, you know, 70% ish down to 10%, as opposed to the alter, which goes from 50% ish down to 10%. So that did also further help things as well.
Okay, great. Yeah,
now,
sounds
radius
like,
we did not take into account, actually. So you asked about radius. Radius we didn't take into account because we just assume the player loses all their spillover in this scenario, in these scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah, the radius is quite large from what I understand. But
Yeah.
the line crossovers for the expandors, if you look at some of these charts where, you know, the expander they cross over at some point with upgraders, basically with the rest of the tiers. And is that in a sense basically the expander is the one who is going to be using a lot of low level alters to get their yields? Is that right?
Low level
Or that's the
harvesters.
low
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. Like if you
Right.
if you were an expander and you own a spacious parcel, the first thing you do on day one is you just instantly craft 128 level 1 harvesters, and then you start to work your way through upgrading them. Or you're a low level or and you don't upgrade them all. You just leave them. You know, you do get a higher ROI, but you get a lot less total profit.
Right. Okay. Right on. So yeah, maybe there could be a sig prop potentially on this soon. Just addressing mainly, it sounds like the harvest rates are going to be tweaked a bit. You know, the way I guess parcels get farmed are going to be taken into account. You know, whether you're using a humble parcel to do your farming, you might have to change your strategy a bit. But this definitely seems to incentivize upgrading the ladder, you know, moving up the ladder over time if you want to increase your yields rather than either upgrading everything right away at the start or just staying low level for a long period of time. It actually takes the middle approach, it sounds like, of like, well, you kind of should be thinking about both at all points in the game because it might benefit you.
Yeah, and you could these recipes, especially I think recipe C makes it so that you could do either, and both is different players might do both. Like it doesn't make upgrading the definitive strategy. It just brings it into balance with expanding. And like I said, recipe C is my favorite, but and I was talking to Notorious earlier, and I basically said, I'd be happy. I think any of these options, A, B, or C, I think is a really big step forward over the current rules. And but personally, recipe C is my personal favorite. And just want to make sure people are clear that recipe C is basically changing the harvester and then also changing the maker recipe. And then I guess one of the points for discussion in terms of a sig prop is, do we combine, do we just tie the maker recipe reduction in with recipe C, or do we kind of break it out into its own thing? But I really see recipe C and the reduced maker cost having to go hand in hand, because if you leave the maker cost and you keep recipe C, the player's returns overall, I think, are going to be cut significantly lower than what was originally intended. So I kind of see them as tied together. So like I said, I'm going to leave it to Notorious to kind of deal with the sig prop end of things, and I know he's working on that. And I'm happy to answer questions about numbers or run numbers again as needed.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for breaking this down. I'm just looking at recipe C right now. Definitely go check out that long discussion thread, and you guys also have created like a pretty extensive document around the model itself, right? It's like 22 pages long, but do you have that available that we can drop in the DAO meetings? Is that something people can just have a look at?
It's in the Google Drive folder. It's in that same folder. I'll drop in the link again right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's in there. The link to it's in there.
And for people who maybe might not want to read the whole 22-page document, what would you recommend they have a look at least to get a good idea of what we're discussing here?
I think that's a little bit what Notorious is trying to work on now, is just kind of get my whole 10-minute spiel or whatever it took from what I said at the beginning, and just get it distilled down as much as possible. It's hard because it's a nuanced topic, and I know it's come up recently, especially with the channeling vote, that it's just basically some people have said, I don't have time to look into everything, and I tend to vote the way everyone else does. But this is, I feel like, is pretty critical. So as much as people can really dive in and understand, and like I said, encourage anyone to ask questions, the more people can just really understand this stuff, and the better, I think, because it seems pretty critical.
Yeah, 100%. This affects everyone's overall yields, not their overall yields per se, but their strategy to get those yields. They'll have to take that into account with some of these changes if they want to reap the benefits from these different strategies, right? Rather than pretending like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I think from my reading that document, I found the archetypes to be the most interesting. So, at very minimum, please just like go have a look at the 3 archetypes. I think four archetypes. I can't remember how many archetypes there were.
Yeah,
I think there was 3 main ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go have a look at those and kind of see what we're talking about here. Even if maybe you might not get what the charts are implying. The 3 archetypes are laid out really well there, and then there's the rest of the document you can dig into as well. Yeah. Do you have any final kind of comments around what you guys are working on? I think it's really great.
No, like I said, I hope that we're, unless anyone has like strong objections or thinks that there's something that, an option we're not seeing here, I think we're pretty much ready to move forward with the sig prop and Notorious would work on that. And I think as part of that, try and put out, a good summary document, whether either in the sig prop itself or separately, that really just tries to distill it down as short as we can for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So moving on to the next thing here, we were going to address the DAO SOP, just get an update on that, but I think Dr. Wagme is not in today, so we can table that one for next week. we got land 3. I was gonna ask Coder Dan, what are we thinking for the final date for the land auction? Do we have any details on that? And is it still 8,000 parcels?
Yeah, Golden Cross has been spearheading that a lot. I've been just so tasked with the botting. I know he and Neon Kong have been going over a lot of the details of that. I believe we are still good to have that at the end of the month. I believe it will end on a Sunday, so it should be starting on, I believe that would be a Thursday. And it's scheduled currently. Mark says he feels like land 3 auction should come after harvester release. Currently, the way we're planning is the land 3 would be held, and then the harvester release would come after that, not too much longer after that. Yeah, it wouldn't be harvester release and then land. It would be land and then harvester release.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I know Golden Cross yesterday. The hangout was saying potentially the last weekend of the month. So that would put it at, if it does happen for that, it would put it at I think the 25th of June potentially.
Yeah.
So very cool. And are we still thinking 8,000 parcels? I think that's what was in the prop, right? The core prop.
I think so, yeah. I think that
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Okay, right on. Raffle? Do we know how many maybe are going to be in the raffle, or is that still up being debated? How many land parcels we're thinking?
Last time it was I think it was 30%, right? So I don't know, was that in the SIG prop? I'd have to check.
Oh, yeah.
But if it wasn't, then we'll just do what we did last time, which was, I think it was 30%.
Okay, right on. I'm just knocking these out right now. How much more of your time do we have today?
I got
We
a
have
little
like
bit more. Okay, yeah,
Okay.
I see in Dr. Wagme's proposal, he does say 70% for auction, 30% for raffle. So we do have that covered.
Sweet.
And that would fund the revenue for, I guess, what is turning up to be potentially Rarity Farming Season 4 here.
I mean, I did have that jotted down. What time frame are we thinking for that? Like a couple months out, maybe, or maybe sooner? I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
it's
it'd have to be after the auction at least.
yeah, it would be need to somewhere in July or August if this proposal gets passed, and it's going to be funded. So as long as there's funds in the DAO for it, I think it can be done.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, another little thing here. Do we have Thunderfish in the house? Is he in here? I know you've been away for a little bit, but if you want to come up and talk about your wearables, some wearable set modifications, that's been tabled for the last couple weeks. Apparently, there's a wearable set bug. Miro board hardcore has laid it out.
If someone has like
issue with some of the set.
if you've been, I mean,
So it
I don't
seems
think
like
if there's a bug, we don't need to like have a SIG prop for a bug. If you know a bug, the easiest way to get that visible would have like a Google Doc with the set name and what it is currently and what it should be. And then we can just go and update that. I don't think we need a SIG prop if it's a bug from what it should be. It depends on how serious, I guess, it is. If it's a very minor thing, then it's probably okay to update. If it's something that would affect a lot of gotchis, then we probably should do a SIG prop on it. But I need to definitely look at that.
Yeah, and then there's just some specific sets that they're saying like rebalancing the set, like this Link Marine set, in regards to the set bonus as well, is kind of, I guess, contradicting what the set initially gives you as a BRS. The set bonus is contradicting to that. I think Link
Right.
Marine set was one of those.
Yeah, generally,
So again, like
if
that,
there's like
that is
an
something maybe.
accident,
Yeah.
I don't think those require a
Okay.
sick prop.
So this is
Probably.
more
We'll just,
like maybe get it together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Someone
Sorry, go
already
ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, like, someone's no futuristic is talking about changing the percentages for how much is allocated during the rarity farming to XP versus kinship, because kinship's already being rewarded by channeling.
The question: can we put more emphasis on?
Can't hear you guys.
Testing. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I'm maybe Hefe is dropping out.
Okay, yeah, he's just saying, can we put more emphasis on XP because kinship is already being rewarded by every day by channeling. You get more, obviously, you get more alchemica when your kinship's higher, so you don't necessarily need more of a reward.
Yeah. The kinship rewards in the Gotchiverse are not really directly proportional to the kinship. Like 1,000 kinship is only marginally better than, let's say, 900. So, but on the rarity farming leaderboard, there's a big difference between 1,000 and 900. So I don't know totally if that argument would fly.
Well, I don't think
but
I don't think he's saying completely get rid of it. I think he's just saying, like, there's currently is there any benefit for XP other than rarity farming? Whereas there is some benefit for kinship other than rarity farming. Yeah, okay. Harambe says guild channeling because you could join multiple guilds, but I mean, who knows who knows how far out that is, and I mean that's really just A. Oh,
yeah, I
found a
think,
bot.
a slight modification could be in order, like a couple points. Right now it's 2010, right? So maybe it could be moved a couple points, 2 or 3 points. Yeah. That would probably
Yeah,
appease
rebalancing of the
everyone.
a rebalancing of the percentages. Is that what you're saying? Like the reward percentages?
Yeah, right now it's 70 20
Yeah.
10. Maybe it could be 70 23 17 or 20 24. Or I guess it'd be doing the math on the fly here. 16 14 maybe. But yeah, I think that's worth discussing. A couple percentages, because kinship is being actively rewarded within the game now, whereas XP is still a couple months out.
Yeah, I mean, it could be relevant for this upcoming rarity farming for sure, given those facts. Definitely something we can like continue talking about next week. Maybe actually get some real percentages of how people would want to see those being shifted from kinship to XP, and then kind of move on from there. One thing that we didn't get to cover this time around was bubble ups, and that is another pretty big topic. But if if you have time to talk about bubble ups, we can. Otherwise, we can also move on that for next week.
Yeah, I think I'd like to do one more flash poll here. As we've been
Okay.
talking, I've just been thinking, just to go back to, before I get off, just to go back to the cartridges. So if we were to charge glitter for them, one idea could be the upfront cost for the cartridge could be a little bit higher, and then the charge would be cheaper, as like you're paying upfront for the cartridge, and then the charge would be relatively cheaper than the cartridge itself. Like if you wanted to get another additional 7 days, it would cost significantly less to recharge it than to buy the entire cartridge. So that would kind of be interesting. That would be one mechanic we could explore, because that would give a high upfront cost for the potential botter, obviously the player too. But then if they continue playing, the cost would be much lower. So that would be one way. And then the other point would be, we could include an airdrop of cartridges to current players, as we're intending to do with the invite only model as well. So just 2 points on that. And then I just want to do one more flash poll, because the other one was pretty close, just to see if there's any change in thought on anything with those points. Let me find the flash poll here. So this is a big.
All right, flash.
Yeah.
I wonder, are people voting for the glitter option because they think that there won't be enough cartridges without that option? Because like the glitter option doesn't really help. I mean, it gets value out of bots, but it doesn't really solve any of the botting issue. Like in theory, they could come in just as quickly as they were before. They would just have to obviously pay up front.
Yeah. Well, that's going to deter them, because if they have to pay $10 up front in glitter,
It will
they
deter
get
them
banned.
if we're banning them quick enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, are we banning them quick enough? Do you think we are?
Well, our tech is definitely going to continue improving. Obviously, they're going to continue improving as well. So
Yeah, like I said to you before this, like I'm pretty sure I saw a bot that was basically indistinguishable from a regular player, just based on, like, they weren't doing the diagonal movements, they were doing left and right movements, but they knew where the Alchemica was always.
Yeah,
I was
that's
following them
very
for like
sus.
3 minutes. So I don't know. I think it's gonna be hard. It's gonna start being harder to catch these bots that know what they're doing. And I don't know if this is like the glitter option is going to really prevent them at all.
Yeah. So I mean, if the majority do prefer invite only, then we need to think about what the prerequisites for round 2 will be. What are the conditions on which? Because that's kind of the core of the proposal, is that we have the first round of the cartridges, and then the second round is based on a certain kind of KPI that the cartridge dispenser, the patron, reaches. So that would kind of need to be part of that.
KPI
Or we could just
being
say, don't worry about round 2. We'll decide it when we get there. But I think it would be useful to have some guidelines for the players, that they could know, like, all right, what are the expectations this game has for me as a player? Because if we don't set any expectations, they're not really going to know. They're just going to do what they want to do. But if we set expectations, like, here's what we expect you to do. If you follow these rules, then your patron will be rewarded in round 2.
like I don't think it has to be super restrictive. Like you don't have to, like, if you sell like 10%, like I think keeping like basically any amount of value in the ecosystem is like in my opinion good enough. Like it's just the people that are like literally extracting 90% plus. That's the issue.
Yeah.
See what the poll looks like here. Chat's moving fast. So
I pinned it.
we got 5 for glitter purchase cartridges. We got 17 for invite only cartridges. We got 2 for none of the above. If you haven't voted yet, definitely get your vote in there. But right now, the majority seems to be leaning pretty heavily towards invite only cartridges. So
and there's a lot of like factors that go into it. Like I said, how these are allocated is a main one. I think that will change people's, like, I think Monarch, I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like if we gave every Gotchi, like every owner a cartridge for their like one per Gotchi, I feel like Monarch would vote for invite only. But if we didn't do that, he might not vote that way. So I think it will heavily depend on how we're giving these out too.
Mhm. Let's assume we're giving them out in a way that everyone is fairly satisfied with the distribution, which I think shouldn't be that difficult to accomplish.
Yeah.
But and then the second one is just to determine what are the expectations that we're going to have on the players that would grant the patrons a second round of cartridges in the whenever we do the second round. And the third kind of parameter, if we're thinking about this as a smart contract, what would be the initial duration of the cartridge? Would it be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 7 days? Could there be a situation where you have the cartridge and maybe when your cartridge runs out, you could pay Glitter to top it up? That could also be interesting. There's many ways we can think about this. But basically, after that, if we do 60 days, then after 60 days, we would need to reevaluate and do round 2 based on the metrics that we put out as requirements or KPIs for the players.
Yeah, I think if the cartridges, we're thinking of it as a long-term implementation, maybe getting some data around how the cartridges are working would be good initially. So maybe we do a short period for the first round there, just to get some data collected around how well this is working, and then make the appropriate adjustments, and then move forward maybe for longer time periods in the future. Kind of have like a like this is a beta for the cartridges, like a beta test to see how well this will work. And then, once we see the betas work, then we roll out the full version of, after making the adjustments of what the cartridge system could look like for the longer term. And then at that point, maybe implement longer time frames for the cartridges too.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm gonna definitely think about that tomorrow, and then I guess I will definitely keep looking at the conversation here on the DAO forum, and then formulate some of my own thoughts and post them there, and hopefully we can have some sort of coherent proposal by next week. We're moving fast here because we are kind of we want to make sure that we're handling these bots properly and setting the right tone, but definitely don't want to move too fast that we trip ourselves up. So also keeping that in mind. But this is the power of the DAO. I think not just us and having the entire community think about this issue and considering all the various stakeholders is super powerful. And I love that we're able to have this discussion with all the members of the community, like putting in input, ensuring that the majority of the OG player base will be satisfied with the solution.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at the discussions we have. We've had some pretty hot debates in the past around things like Haunt 3, and I can't remember the other one, but there was another situation in the past, or Haunt 2, I mean. There's another situation in the past that was a very hot debate, but I think we've shown ourselves over time that we're able to come to consensus on things, and that really shows how powerful we are as a DAO. As despite having differences or polarizing opinions, we can come to on some sort of consensus around these issues, especially something like botting. We all know from gaming that bots in other games like MMORPGs have just ruined the whole game. So if we can really address this from the get go and come to consensus on a great solution, then I think it's just gonna again reaffirm how powerful we are as a DAO.
Mm-hmm. Aavegotchi says Carthage initial drop gives 3 days. First pay glitter amount gives 3 days, second pay gives 2 days, third pay gives 4 days.
That sounds extremely complicated.
I don't quite.
Is he joking? Like, I have no idea why 3, then 2, then 4. What?
No Future makes a great suggestion. We are having a Gotchi space tonight. Again, hosted by me because I live in the Gotchiverse on the weekends. Come hang out with us tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. We can continue this conversation. Hear some of more of your opinions around this, and then we can come back to the round table next Sunday, and carry the conversation on forward. So hopefully we can come to consensus between now and then on what the cartridge system should look like. So yeah, I mean, I was good. Go ahead.
Going to respond to Harambe here asking about helping Pixelcraft hire more devs, especially for anti-bot. So the token swap that we're proposing will fund us pretty well for at least 18 months at our current burn rate. I mean, we definitely wouldn't be against the DAO if you guys want to hire someone to basically join Pixelcraft as the bot czar. Then we would not be opposed to having receiving a grant or something from that. If that would, like, if the DAO wants that, we can definitely. We want to continue hiring more talent for sure. It's the bear market now, so it should be actually a little bit easier to hire for crypto stuff, which is going to be nice. But yeah, if you would like to make a grant for hiring a specific position in Pixelcraft, I don't think we'd be opposed to that.
I also think we should have consideration for a bot hunter wearable set when you guys are considering the next rollout.
Yeah.
Like a Dog the Bounty Hunter outfit, but for hunting bots.
Another interesting idea on the bot front, because when we're trying to do bot hunting, it's a more of an automated process, and it's trying to come at it from an automation perspective so we can get them before they start extracting too much. But I mean, maybe there's a spot where we could have some sort of a bot task force that is paid for by the DAO, and we could give those members of the community band privileges within the Gotchiverse.
I want to
that
know
would be yeah. So I mean, these have to be trusted community members. We can't basically allow anyone to flag a bot, because the bots themselves will troll that, and they'll start flagging human players, and then it'll just become a big mess. So it really needs to be trusted community members doing the flagging, and so that there could be a bot task force that the DAO creates, and probably would want it to be a paid job, because it will take a lot of time to. They would be going at it from a more of a manual perspective in the Gotchiverse itself, just rolling around looking for bots. I would say we don't want, I think one person is really not enough to do the job. It's a big game. There's a lot of space, and you might be following a bot for several minutes before you finally confirm it. So I would say a couple people doing that would be enough. So it could be an interesting proposal if the DAO wants to fund a couple community members to do that, part-time or full-time.
Yeah, I have a question somewhat related. How is there a way for me to figure out the wallet or Gotchi ID based on a Gotchi's name? Or what's the easiest way to do that?
Let's see. We do have an API for that. I'm not sure if it is public yet, because it's kind of sensitive information. But those kind of APIs would be available to the community bot hunters that are elected, basically.
Okay, well, I'm just going to DM you after, because I found one and I want to look into his wallet.
So for the bot hunting, probably would, I don't know if we'd want to go through the DTF for that. It seemed like a perfect opportunity for the DTF to help manage that process instead of having like a full vote on that. So if Dr. Wyman, you're listening, maybe you can chime in on that. But I do have to get out here, guys. Okay, he says
Yeah.
he believes it's outside the scope of the DTF. Got it. Cool. Well,
Okay,
you guys
I mean,
can have a thought on it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a good point to wrap it up at this point here. And I want to thank everyone for coming out, including Coder Dan, and hanging out and participating here on Sunday morning. Shows the level of commitment. Sunday morning we have 106 people in here, so
Yeah.
really appreciate that, you guys coming in here, voting on some of this stuff, and being part of the conversation and building out the game. Like we're all part of it too. So
Yep.
really great. I got nothing else to say besides come hang out on Twitter Spaces tonight, 7 p.m. We'll keep
All right.
talking about this. That's all I got.
Cool. Later, everyone. Have a great Sunday.
See you
Later,
guys.
Dan.
See you in the verse later.
See you in the verse. Yeah. Later, fellas. Take care, everyone.